The Honorable Staffan Nilsson, it is a pleasure to have you here at the ICT and for your thought-provoking speech. We would like to ask you some couple of questions regarding some salient issues. First one is, how can cultural diplomacy help in making a more united Europe?
First of all, I am also very happy to be with both of you and with the ICD. I think that culture, because we have a diversity in European Union, but culture is a tool to be proud for what you have in your region, in your local, because you have differences in all members inside the member states. But as we have the union together, there is no risk, there is a possibility to be proud for what you have. And it doesn't mean that we divide the European Union, it's the opposite in my view, that we can be proud for what we have in differences. And culture is a tool, but it gives also something for yourself. Learning, understanding, but for me culture can also and should sometimes be a little provocative. To give us new ideas, new view on things. I mean, if you go for theater, sometimes you can be provoked, but it is in eye to give you a possibility to reflect.
Engaging people for sustainable Europe is one of your messages during your office term. So could you elaborate briefly how this can benefit the European Union?
First of all, when we talk about sustainable Europe, I mean, when I talk it as a title for my presidency, sustainability is very often used, and it cannot only be words. But for me, sustainability is the traditional, you talk about economic, social, environmental, etc. But it is, for me, it's also the history of Europe. I mean, if you look for Europe, we have been small countries, small languages, and we have had a historical tradition to kill each other. And now we can say that the way of free union is a possibility to also keep sustainability. But of course we cannot neglect either the environmental aspect if you look for climate change, etc. So I mean, for me, sustainable Europe is a very wide and it can really and should benefit the European Union.
Thank you.
This is a bit of a more personal from my background. You have been a supporter in the integration of countries in the Union. Can you explain maybe why Albania is being constantly rejected the status of candidates?
I know that there is 2-3 countries in the region which want to start the negotiations. Of course, there is from the beginning what is called Copenhagen criteria, 3 headlines which should be fulfilled. And then, of course, you need to be prepared that it is possible to adapt all the legislations. So in one way I can understand that there could be a possibility that the country is not already there. On the other side, I think it also a negotiation in itself help to motivate change. So if you start the negotiations, perhaps it could be more easy to get people, citizens, to understand that there is some need for change in the legislation. So personally, I know I was in Albania recently, before they decided not to open, and I know that there was expectation. And in my role as member in European Economic Zone and the past president, I really want to support that it could be opened. I mean, probably we have to wait to see 1 year more, but like in Turkey, I think negotiations should go on with Turkey and should be open with other countries. We need to unite Europe.
That is true. That is definitely true.
The European Union is going through hard economic times since 2008. A lot of young people are unemployed, and what will be the possible solutions, according to your judgment, to solve this urgent issue?
Perhaps it's the most difficult question,
Yeah.
because there is no one solution. And of course you can see differences in different member states. My head message is that we need to have more solidarity between member states. You can see that member states who have said we are far away from economic problems, they are affected. Depending on that, there is a less of demand in other countries. And of course, I try to compare with the family. If somebody in the family, children or some else, have difficulties or illness, we have a solidarity. And that's the same in European Union. But of course, we need to come out of austerities. We need to talk more about social issues. But of course, we need also to come back to a better economic growth. And I cannot avoid to say that even member states need to do what is needed to do for repair and to try to put on track what is needed. I mean, even member states like my member states who has a good balance just now, 20 years ago we have our own crisis. And of course there is something which is difficult to do and where citizens could be upset, etc. But you need to explain.
Thank you.
What is your opinion on this conference and the role of the Institute of Cultural Diplomacy?
First of all, I'm very interested in the topic and what you put on the agenda, short interventions, a lot of interventions, a lot of different aspects, and a lot of young, engaged people. That's not always you see in conferences and meetings, like you. But of course also the Institute, I participate for the first time in the advisory board today. And of course there is a discussion, how could we go further on? What is the goal, what is the result, and how could it be used? And I think also for some people you need perhaps also to explain what we mean with cultural diplomacy. That this is a sort of label, I understand what it is, but for some people it could be difficult to understand. As I represent civil society, I want citizens and people to know what we are talking about. But I think it's a good tool. I think you do a good job in the Berlin and in the conference here. It's very interesting and a lot of possibilities to meet people with big experience. Sometimes you have connections, sometimes you have common friends, sometimes you can exchange good ideas.
Just a little bit of an extra question. Well, how do you think, because you said you were part of the civil society and you wanted to somehow expand the idea, how do you think can we proliferate?
How we can
proliferate or expand the idea of cultural diplomacy or make people understand it more?
You mean the cultural diplomacy?
Yeah, the concept.
Yes, the concept. I think you can explain in very concrete words what it is about. It is to use also the differences in culture to get not only knowledge, also feelings. Understand more easily other countries' traditions. And part of it for me, it's also the knowledge of history. I mean, you cannot steer for the future looking backwards. But if you don't know a little what happened in the past, you are not aware of the situation today and it's more difficult to steer. But the steering should be for the future.
Thank you for your time, sir. It was an honor and a privilege to have you here. And
for me it was. For you, I don't know.
Oh, it was
great.
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 Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.